I think Jack's going to stand very close to me. Hi. Jack was diagnosed when he was 2 years and 11 months old. He got his first set of hearing aids 2 weeks later, and then he got his strongest set of hearing aids a year after that. And then he was first implanted when he was 4.5 years old, and got his second implant when he was 4 years and 9 months old. Before Jack's diagnosis, there were behavioural issues, and Jack was not making friends, and he had no language at all. We found the Shepherd Centre in December of 2009, and we attended the Rural In service in January 2010, and that's when life began getting better. The first couple of years are honestly a blur, and I just remember that there were a lot of appointments with everyone, with Australian Hearing, with ENTs, with paediatricians, developmental paediatricians. But at the Shepherd Centre and the playgroup at the Shepherd Centre provided structure for us and allowed us for Jack to start improving. Jack always struggled with his s and f sounds, and it was only a week after Jack's first cochlear implant that he made those sounds perfectly, no more slushy S's, and it was absolutely amazing. At Jack's graduation ceremony, I remember sitting there and I remember being absolutely petrified. I was petrified of leaving the structure of the Shepherd Centre behind, and I was petrified of what school would be like for Jack in the future. Jack was fine, and it's all been a breeze. I didn't know that at the time, but now looking back on it, it was, and I had nothing to be scared of. Jack is fearless, and always has been and always will be fearless. And to this day, Jack doesn't see himself as any different to any other kid at school or in the playground. I've always taught Jack that every kid has things that they're good at and things that they struggle with a bit, and for Jack, he struggles a little bit with his hearing. But we work on that, and it's fine. And whilst I calmly tell Jack that, inside I'm still terrified every single day. The things that excited Jack about going to school were calling a teacher by their surname. It was a huge thing. He was so excited that he got to call someone Mr. or Mrs. Didn't you? And then wearing his uniform, which Jack is proudly wearing today. He loves his sport uniform the best. That was exciting. The other thing about going to school meant that Jack got to start team sports. So Jack also started soccer in March of his first year at school. And Jack has never looked back with soccer, although to this day he tends to get more field time than any of the other kids just because he can't hear his name being yelled to be subbed off. So we've had to develop a couple of strategies around that. The coach now yells for the kid next to Jack, who then taps Jack on the shoulder, and then Jack runs on. We've also had a couple of other funny things happen with soccer, haven't we? This year at soccer, Jack started with goalies, and when they're younger they don't have goalies. But then when you're goalie, you've got two dirty great big gloves on your hand, and then when you're goalie and you're playing in the mud, you tend to slip over. And halfway through this year, there was a muddy game. Jack stopped a goal, being goalie. One cochlear implant fell off. He picked that up with one hand. He then stopped another goal with the other hand. That implant fell off. He's then standing in goals holding these two implants and looking at me on the side going, what do I do? So another kid thankfully kicked the ball up the other end, and so I had to run onto the field and stick his implants on. And so now every parent in Jack's soccer team knows how to put Jack's implants back on, and they know that it's okay, you just run on. If they fall off in the middle of the game and Jack's goalie, just run on and help him. The last thing that Jack was excited about going to big school was playing in the big playground with all the big kids. Couldn't wait to play cricket and soccer every lunchtime. And Jack still, when I ask him about school and what he did in his day, he will always just comment on what he did at recess and lunch, never about what happens in the classroom. Jack's best subject at school is English, and he now spells beautifully and reads his own home reader beautifully every night, and that's the favourite part of my day, is listening to Jack with his home reader. He reads with such passion, and every different character in the book has a different voice, and it just amazes me from where we came from that's what he does now. This year at school, Jack wanted to be his class's SRC rep. So to be SRC rep, you have to do a speech and then you have to get voted in by your class. I think the reason that Jack wanted to be in the SRC was because it means getting out of classroom for half an hour every fortnight. So Jack wrote his speech, and his speech was on why homework should be banned. He had a very good argument there. I didn't have to do anything at all. All I had to do was, my job was to cut out the palm cards so that you could look professional, wasn't it? He didn't want to have a big piece of paper because that's not what professional people do. As I said, Jack was the narrator in Olga the Brolga, and he also played Foxy Loxy in Chicken Little later this year. Jack, one of the things that we got through this year was that Jack had swimming lessons at school, did the 2-week intensive that most schools do in Year 2. I, again, was terrified. How were we going to do this? How was he going to manage this with his implants and with all of his equipment? And so I spent hours packing the bag and teaching Jack how to pack the bag and where we were going to put the implants and how they were going to stay dry. And once again, Jack just did his thing and the world was fine. He survived, no issues at all. And it actually turned out that Jack was more terrified of having to get changed in the change rooms on his own. He had no issues with juggling the implants and what all of that meant. It was the change rooms that scared him. So the things that I've learnt along the way since Jack started school is that I educate everyone. Anyone that will listen to me about Jack and being deaf and about all of his equipment, I tell everyone. Anyone who will spend 2 minutes listening to me, I will tell them. And I find that that's really helpful because it means that other people then aren't scared and they know exactly what's going on and they know the reason why Jack has trouble being subbed off at soccer. It's just because there's too much background noise and there's whistles blowing everywhere. So it's really tricky, but as long as everyone knows, it's fine. So I found that being at school and being at sport and being present for all of those activities means that I can educate everyone. The other thing that I've found really useful is that Jack has a very good answer to what's that on your ears. And I would encourage everyone to have your kid practice an answer to that question and have it be simple and quick, because once other kids have that question answered, it's not an issue anymore. They don't care. Jack runs around in the playground just like every other kid, and once they've had an explanation of what's on his ears, it's fine.